Have you ever paused to think about what truly elevates an educational environment? I mean, what makes it exceptional for every single student, no matter their background or needs? It's often, not just what happens in the classroom, it's deeply shaped by the leadership, the people steering the whole school system. So today, we're diving deep into this fascinating world of systemic school leadership, and specifically, its incredible impact on creating high quality, truly inclusive education. Now, our journey into this, it isn't just our opinions, it's informed by a really rigorous, systematic review. This review pulled together a whole decade of empirical studies from 2014 right up to 2024. It was done by Robert White, Charles Lowery, and Jerry Johnson, and it's kind of our guide for this discussion. Our mission, really, with this deep dive, it's to uncover the most effective leadership practices out there. We also want to understand the real-world hurdles these leaders face, and ultimately see the amazing ripple effects they create, not just in schools, but, well, throughout society. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, and to really get into it, maybe we should start with how this review talks about inclusive education itself. Because the idea has really evolved. Historically, the focus was often quite narrow, usually just thinking about students with special educational needs. But what this review highlights, and it's crucial, is that the concept has broadened out a lot. It's now about addressing all forms of exclusion and marginalization in schools.
All forms, so going way beyond just special needs.
Exactly. It means ensuring every single student, whatever their background, ability, identity, feels like they belong, feels valued, and genuinely has the same shot at thriving.
That broadened definition, wow, it really changes the game, doesn't it? It's not just about access, but real belonging. And speaking of impact, the review seems to shift focus a bit. Teachers are obviously crucial, heroes on the front line, but it sounds like it emphasizes the systemic role of principals, of school administration. How do they fit into this bigger picture of inclusion?
Well, their role is absolutely pivotal. Think of it like this. Teachers implement, but leaders, they create the conditions for inclusion to actually happen. The review makes it super clear. Principals and administrators, they're the architects of a positive school culture. They're the ones who allocate resources strategically. And they make sure the best inclusive methods aren't just stuck in one classroom, but reach every classroom.
Okay.
It's about building a whole coherent system, where inclusion isn't just an extra thing, it's like baked into the school's DNA.
So it's less about isolated good deeds and more about how policy, the school structure, leadership qualities, how they all work together. That clicks. The systematic review then was really trying to figure out how leaders transform schools to make education powerful and fair for everyone, looking at all those pieces.
Precisely, how all those elements interplay.
Right. So let's get practical. What does this effective systemic leadership actually look like? The review apparently found 5 key themes, maybe pillars is a good word for them, things that kept coming up as crucial for inclusive education. And these aren't just theories, right? They're actionable things schools can do.
Absolutely actionable. The first pillar they identified is collaborative leadership. This means leaders who actively, genuinely engage with everyone. They leverage the strengths, the perspectives of teachers, parents, students, community members.
Bringing everyone to the table.
Exactly. It's more than just sending out a survey. It's about co-creating the school environment together.
Co-creating. What does that look like on the ground? Is it just more meetings?
Right.
Or something else?
It's definitely deeper than just meetings. Think about specific strategies, like maybe co-creating the school improvement plan with an active parent committee, or empowering groups of teachers to lead policy development, or even involving students in figuring out school-wide behavior rules.
Okay, I see.
And the research backs this up. Studies consistently show principals who regularly use collaborative decision-making. They report much higher staff satisfaction and, importantly, higher student engagement.
That makes sense. People feel ownership.
Right. And there was another study linking what they called collective efficacy.
Collective efficacy.
Yeah, it's basically the shared belief among the staff that, hey, we can do this, we can succeed together. And they found a strong link between that belief and actually reducing achievement gaps between different student groups.
Wow. So collaboration builds belief. And that belief leads to real results for kids. That's powerful.
Okay, building on that, the next pillar seems really critical. Equity-focused decision-making. Tell us about that one.
Yes, this is key. This pillar is about leaders who really prioritize equity. They get that equal isn't always fair.
Yeah.
So they don't just treat everyone the same. They actively work to spot and then dismantle the specific barriers that might be holding back marginalized groups.
Specific barrier. Yeah. It takes a deep understanding of the unique challenges some students face and then, adjusting policies and practices. It's definitely not a rigid one-size-fits-all mindset.
That sounds like it requires real intentionality, a lot of awareness. Did the research show how leaders actually do this? Specific practices?
It did, yes. Studies showed schools that did things like regular equity audits,
Mm.
really looking at their data through an equity lens, and used that data to drive decisions. Well, they were much more successful in closing achievement gaps.
So data is key there too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And importantly, this isn't just a Western thing. Research from places like Nepal highlighted culturally specific ways leaders practice equitable leadership that have a huge positive impact there, too. It's about being tuned in to your community.
Right, being responsive.
Mm.
Which leads nicely into the third pillar, doesn't it? This feels like the investment needed to make those equity decisions work. Commitment to professional development. Why is ongoing learning so crucial here?
Well, because things change. Education evolves, our understanding evolves, student needs evolve. So educators need to keep learning, too. Investing in continuous professional development, or PD, for teachers and staff, it's not just box ticking, it's vital. It equips them with the skills for, say, culturally responsive teaching and helps them meet the really diverse needs of all their students.
Right.
Good leaders create a culture where learning is constant for everyone, including themselves.
I can imagine it's easy to do a one-off workshop, but this sounds like it needs to be deeper, more sustained. Did the review find anything about what kind of PD works best for inclusion?
It really stresses the long game. For example, one longitudinal study followed schools over 3 years. The ones with comprehensive, ongoing PD programs focused specifically on inclusive practices. They showed significant jumps in how effective teachers felt, and in student outcomes, too.
3 years, so it takes time.
It's a sustained investment, not a quick fix. And they're even looking at innovative ways, like using web-based case studies just for principals, which showed positive results in boosting those inclusive leadership skills.
Building capacity over time. Okay. And it seems that capacity isn't just built inside the school walls. Pillar number 4 is building a community of support. How do leaders reach beyond the school gates effectively?
Yeah, they get that the school isn't like an island, right? It's part of a bigger ecosystem. So effective leaders actively build supportive communities, both inside and outside the school. This means real partnerships with local organizations, getting families involved in meaningful ways, not just bake sales,
Right.
and engaging other stakeholders to create this strong support network. This is especially vital for students from underrepresented backgrounds. It provides a safety net, resources.
That makes total sense, especially for kids facing challenges outside school. Can you give us a more concrete example? What does that community of support actually look like?
Sure. There was a case study looking at successful urban schools. It really highlighted how vital community partnerships were for providing wraparound services.
Wraparound services.
Yeah, things beyond just academics, like food programs, maybe help with after-school care, access to mental health support, things the school alone might struggle to provide. And again, research from other contexts like the Philippines shows similar strategies. Leaders managing diversity well and tapping into local resources to build these really inclusive communities.
Okay, that paints a clear picture. Which brings us to the 5th and final pillar. This sounds like the foundation for making smart decisions across all the other areas, data-driven practices.
Yep.
Why is looking at the data so central?
Because, honestly, it moves decisions away from just gut feelings or assumptions and toward actual evidence. Leaders who really dig into educational data, analyze it carefully, they're just better positioned to see things clearly.
Like what?
Like disparities in achievement between different groups, or figuring out where resources are really needed most, or spotting which students might be falling through the cracks. This kind of informed approach lets them target interventions much more effectively. So support goes where it's most needed, and that improves outcomes for everyone.
And the numbers really back that up, don't they? What did the review find on the impact of being data-driven?
It's pretty striking. One large study, looking at 500 schools, found that the ones consistently using data-driven practices were significantly more likely, I think it was 30% more likely, to show progress in closing achievement gaps over 5 years.
Wow, 30% is a big difference.
It is, and other research directly linked that sort of entrepreneurial, data-informed leadership style with successfully implementing inclusive education. And what's really interesting here is how the quantitative studies, the number-crunching ones, they strongly reinforced all these themes we've talked about.
So the stats match the observations.
Exactly. For instance, studies found statistical significance for both transformational leadership, that's the inspiring, motivating kind, and instructional leadership, which focuses more on teaching and curriculum. Both had substantial positive effects on inclusive education practices. It tells us these leadership approaches aren't just nice ideas. They have a real, measurable, positive impact.
Okay, so these five pillars, collaboration, equity focus, PD, community, data, they're clearly powerful. But, changing things in schools is rarely easy. The review must have also touched on the challenges the roadblocks schools hit when they try to implement these things. It can't always be smooth sailing.
Oh, definitely not. You're right. The review acknowledges significant hurdles. These include pretty common issues like resistance to change, sometimes from staff, sometimes elsewhere, the perennial problem of not having enough resources, and just the sheer complexity of trying to manage incredibly diverse student needs all under one roof.
Can you give an example?
Sure. One study found, I think it was around 40% of teachers initially felt reluctant about adopting new inclusive practices, mostly because they were worried about workload increases.
That's understandable.
And another study pointed out a really stark reality. Schools in lower-income areas were just far less likely, maybe 50% less likely, to have the resources needed for really comprehensive inclusive programs.
That resource gap is huge. Did the review get into any more subtle challenges? Maybe things leaders don't even realize are barriers, like biases.
It did, actually.
Yeah.
And this is where it gets quite nuanced and, frankly, important for leaders to think about. One experimental study, for instance, highlighted that even something like the perceived gender or age of an instructor could significantly affect how students rated them.
Really? Even unconsciously?
It seems so. We're not necessarily talking about overt bias here, but those subtle societal expectations that can creep in and shape perceptions without us even realizing it. For leaders, it just underscores this constant need for self-reflection and maybe getting feedback in ways that bypass those potential biases, because even with the best intentions, you could inadvertently create new barriers.
That's a really crucial point about awareness. So the challenges are real, they're significant. Resource gaps, resistance, complexity, even subtle biases. But despite all that, the review argues the benefits of pushing through, of leading inclusively, go way beyond just grades or test scores. So what's the bigger picture payoff here? What are those ripple effects?
Yeah, stepping back, the impact is broad. When leaders really commit to this, we see things like improved teacher retention. Teachers want to stay in supportive, inclusive environments. We see a more positive school climate overall, better student well-being, emotionally and socially. And interestingly, it even helps develop student leadership skills. Kids learn by seeing inclusion modeled.
And these benefits don't just stop at the school door.
Not at all. They ripple outwards. They contribute to greater social cohesion in the wider community. They boost community engagement with the school. They empower marginalized groups. Ultimately, you're contributing to building more equitable, more cohesive societies. It's foundational work for, well, a better future for everyone, creating stronger citizens.
Wow. So this deep dive really paints a picture, doesn't it? Systemic school leadership marked by that collaboration, the equity focus, the commitment to PD, community links, using data. It's genuinely a powerful lever, a lever for reforming education, yes, but also for positive social change. It's about cultivating people and communities where everyone can flourish.
Exactly. And, while we've learned a massive amount from this review, it also clearly points out where more research is needed. We definitely need more longitudinal studies tracking schools over many years to really see the long-term impacts. And critically, more studies in diverse global contexts. A lot of the research is still focused on, say, economically advanced Western countries.
Right.
Which raises a really important question for all of us, I think. How adaptable are these findings? How do these principles translate across very different cultural or economic realities around the globe?
That's a great point for future work. And it leaves us with a thought, doesn't it? Considering the profound impact this kind of inclusive leadership has on individuals, on schools, on society, how might we, just as individuals in our own lives, in our own communities, cultivate that same mindset, that valuing of diversity, that commitment to inclusion in our everyday interactions, knowing the kind of positive ripple effect it can truly have, something really worth thinking about.